And thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Lori Radke, and I'm the President and CEO at Crohn's and Colitis Canada. And before we jump into our event, I just wanted to start with some housekeeping. First, I wanted to make sure you all knew that the event is being recorded so that others will have a chance to listen in if they're unavailable tonight. And if you're tuning in French, we have simultaneous translation available for you. You can access that by clicking on the interpretation button at the bottom. It's shaped like a world, and by selecting French. And for those tuning in English, one of our panelists, Jennifer, will be sharing her experiences in French. And you can use the same interpretation button shaped like a world at the bottom of your screen to see the simultaneous translation of Jennifer's answers to English. Thank you to our interpreter, Mike from BG Communications, for transcribing Jennifer's responses to English. If you need any support, please reach out in the chat and our team will do their best to help you. Speaking of the chat, please use it. Share your thoughts, your cheers, your questions, and connect with one another to celebrate the volunteers in our community. You can chat with the whole group in the chat on the right side of your screen. So we'll begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the effect of residential schools and colonialism on Indigenous families and communities, and to consider how we are and can each, in our own way, try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Thank you. So over the past couple of years, I've seen the profound difference volunteers can have, not only on our organization, but on the IBD community as a whole. Through the uncertainty and our forced move to a digital world because of the pandemic, and back to slowly integrating ourselves to an in-person environment, Crohn's and Colitis Canada volunteers have remained so important to our overall mission. I am beyond proud and want to make sure that each and every one of these volunteers knows just how important they are to us. If you are a Crohn's and Colitis Canada volunteer, please know that we are so appreciative of the time and the talent that you contribute that supports our collective impact. So why are we here today? You may know that National Volunteer Week was last week. We are here to celebrate all the hard work our volunteer community does year-round. Today, you will hear from 4 volunteers from across the country. We hope that their volunteer experiences and connections to inflammatory bowel disease inspire you and help you feel more connected to our mission. So without further ado, here are our panelists for the evening. First up, David Harrison from Nova Scotia has been volunteering with Crohn's and Colitis Canada since being diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2006. He has been an active member of the Halifax chapter, taking on many roles over the years, including chapter president, Gutsy Walk chair, and acting as spokesperson for the chapter with media. For his volunteer efforts and dedication to his community, David was awarded the Crohn's and Colitis Canada Unsung Hero Award in 2017 and the Queen Elizabeth Platinum Jubilee Medal in 2023. He enjoys reading, writing, brewing, fantasy sports, and spending time with his family, friends, and his chocolate lab, Sandy. Welcome, David. Jennifer Laschiavo from Quebec, who will be answering my questions in French, volunteers with Crohn's and Colitis Canada in order to bring visibility to these invisible diseases. This is the main story she focuses on when she speaks about her Crohn's disease. Jennifer speaks about her Crohn's journey to create awareness and let others know what patients are going through, Being around other people with the same struggles lets Jennifer know she isn't alone. It also allows her to share her personal story with people that understand the challenges of living with IBD. Jennifer's been part of the Gutsy Walk committee, volunteering with Crohn's and Colitis Canada for 7 years, and this is her second year as chair. She also participates in the Gutsy Peer Support Network and other Crohn's and Colitis Canada organized events when she can. Jennifer loves listening to other patients' stories and providing support through her own lived experiences. Welcome, Jennifer. Natisha Lala from Ontario has been living with Crohn's disease since her diagnosis at the age of 18. Over the years, she's experienced many complications associated with living with an invisible illness. And in 2018, Natisha was able to get her severely active disease under control with the help of medical intervention. In an effort to use her experiences to provide support in the community and help generate awareness, Natisha reached out to Crohn's and Colitis for volunteer opportunities in 2018. Along her journey, she has volunteered and participated in several Gutsy Walks, giving her a sense of community when she needed it most. She has since been a Gutsy peer support mentor, providing support to others who have been recently diagnosed with IBD, helping them navigate the ups and downs of living with an autoimmune condition. Natisha hopes her volunteer efforts will help those in the IBD community feel seen, supported, and understood. Welcome, Natisha. Finally, Brianne's sick from Alberta. Brianne is unable to join us as she's caregiving for a family member who's had a flare-up this week. So I'm still going to give you some insight into Brianne's volunteer role with Crohn's and Colitis Canada. I'll tell you a little bit about her. And luckily, we were able to send her some questions and she's provided some email answers. So I'll just share those throughout the evening as we go through the questions. So Brianne is from Alberta. She's passionate about raising funds and awareness for Crohn's and Colitis Canada. She lives with Crohn's disease, and IBD also impacts several of her family members. Brianne encourages the community in Calgary and beyond to reach out and get gutsy to feel less isolated. She does this by partnering with local fitness studios and businesses like breweries to host fun events. She also volunteers at Gutsy Walk. This year, she's co-chairing the walk in Calgary, and in 2021, she was the local honorary chair in Calgary. Through Gutsy Walk and through organizing events, Brianne has raised over $20,000 for Crohn's and Colitis to date. She also supports Crohn's and Colitis through her apparel and accessory social enterprise, crohnscollective.com. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the panel discussion, thanks to those who shared questions in advance. And if questions come up for you, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat and we will do our best to answer them. So let's get into the conversation. We're going to start with what got you started with volunteering at Crohn's and Colitis Canada. And I'm going to read Brianne's answer to this one first. Brianne said, I reached out to be involved with Crohn's and Colitis Canada on a more active basis from 2019 onwards. At the time, I had attended some seminars and I always tried to raise money and awareness when I could, but through my own initiatives. I started actively working alongside the team in 2020, more frequently during the pandemic, and have since tried to hold at least 3 to 4 fundraising events or initiatives a year since then. As an aside, I've started the Crohn's Colitis Collective, a social enterprise aimed at creating a community, raising awareness and funds, and bringing local businesses together to fundraise for a cure. The collective sells apparel, hosts events, and community nights that everyone is allowed to attend. 100% of the donations from events goes to Crohn's and Colitis Canada, and 90% of the profits from the apparel go to Crohn's and Colitis Canada in hopes of finding a cure. So thanks to Brianne for that. And Jennifer, we'll go over to you next. What got you started?
Oui, donc de mon côté, j'ai commencé à faire du bénévolat pour Crohn et Colitis Canada à la fin 2015 pour la marche Désolée, j'ai j'ai la traduction dans mes oreilles, fait qu'il faut juste que faut juste que je vais juste changer pour pas l'entendre. Merci. Donc c'est ça, là, j'ai commencé à faire du bénévolat en 2015 pour la marche, la Montérégie au Québec. J'ai appris que la marche existait pendant un traitement médical. Donc, à cette époque-là, je voulais principalement contribuer à l'organisation de la marche pour m'assurer que les personnes atteintes de la maladie de Crohn et de la colite ulcéreuse puissent avoir une journée pour se rassembler puis marcher pour la cause. Au fil des années, j'ai occupé d'autres rôles. J'ai été porte-parole de la Marche Gotti et je suis maintenant là, la présidente du comité à Montérégie. Je contribue à toutes les études de recherche que je peux pour raconter mon histoire et mon point de vue. Je participe également au programme d'entraide Gotti et je suis à mon deuxième panel. Et puis, en fin de semaine, là, je vais participer à un troisième panel pour partager là, mon histoire. Et puis, bon, évidemment, comme vous pouvez voir, là, j'aime vraiment partager mon histoire pour essayer de rendre nos maladies invisibles visibles. Donc, Crohn et Colitis Canada offre nombreuses possibilités pour faire du bénévolat, pour permettre à chaque personne qui souhaite de contribuer là, d'une façon ou d'une autre à jouer un rôle. Et puis, donc, ça nous donne vraiment un sentiment là, d'appartenance.
Thank you. David, how about you?
I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2006 at the age of 24. After a brief hospital stay, I immediately began looking for more information about a disease I knew existed at the time, but knew very little about. I had a friend in junior high who had Crohn's, but knew very little about the disease beyond what he shared at the time. That would change quickly, though. That initially led me to what at the time was the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of Canada, and my first Halifax chapter meeting not long after. At the meetings, I met several other people in the Halifax area living with Crohn's and colitis, and found ways to get involved to raise awareness for the cause and the increasing number of Canadians, and especially Nova Scotians, being diagnosed with these diseases.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear about each of our individual journeys. Great to learn more about what got you involved in the first place. Maybe Natisha, can you share a little bit about what it's like volunteering with Crohn's and Colitis Canada?
Yeah, so volunteering with Crohn's and Colitis Canada has been equal parts fun and rewarding for myself. Being an event volunteer has been incredibly fun as I've been able to connect with very inspiring social impact leaders. I've made new friends. I've become part of a community that just understands what it's like to live with IBD. I've also found volunteering to be very rewarding, whether it's seeing a successful event that I helped coordinate come to life, or a participant showing appreciations for the ways I've contributed or helped them personally. I would say that's probably the best feeling in the world and a large part of why I volunteer.
That's great. You're right, Natisha. Volunteering can be so rewarding. And I would also say that growing skills through volunteering can also be quite rewarding. And I'm curious to hear about some of the skills that the other panelists have learned or grown through volunteering with Crohn's and Colitis Canada. Maybe we'll start with you, Jennifer.
Oui, donc je dirais que la principale compétence que j'ai améliorée est sans doute la capacité de prendre la parole là, devant le public. Donc avant, je détestais faire des présentations devant un grand groupe, donc un peu comme celle-ci. Mais maintenant, bon, même si c'est toujours pas nécessairement là, la chose que je préfère le plus, mais je sais que je suis experte de mon histoire. Donc ça rend les choses beaucoup plus faciles. Donc, quand j'ai à parler pour les marches Gotti, pour des événements comme celle-ci ou même pour d'autres événements là, dans ma vie personnelle ou professionnelle, je suis définitivement plus à l'aise et moins stressée. C'est vraiment grâce à mon expérience avec de bénévolat, dans le fond, là, avec Crohn et Colitis Canada.
Thank you. David, I know that sharing your story is a big part of how you volunteer. Can you just tell us a bit more about how you've grown as a volunteer in that area?
I consider myself to be an introverted person at heart. So my first chapter meeting many years ago was more about listening than anything else at the time. Learning about the organization, learning about the disease I'd been diagnosed with less than a month earlier. For many people who had once been where I was at the time. I guess at the time it was a little overwhelming, but also relieving in that I wasn't alone in this, and there were people that are living with this disease and leading active, normal, active lives. Over time, I've become much more comfortable with my situation through good times and bad. The bad times include things like flares, surgeries I've had, changing medications repeatedly to try and find one that maintains remission over time. Things like that have made me more resolved to raise more awareness and raise support for those who need it.
Thank you. I do have a response from Brianne here that I'm going to read. She says, communication and awareness is key. There are so many people out there who have no idea what IBD stands for, what Crohn's or colitis is, or what causes it. The more you share your story, the more people learn and want to help. The more you research and know about the causes and symptoms, the more people will open up to you about their experiences. And ultimately, the more you raise awareness for this disease, the more funding and event opportunities there are. She says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. When I first started the collective, I had a mission to try and raise as much funding as possible. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I thought I would start somewhere. I remember going through a lot of homework, searching grant opportunities, funding, etc., and realized, why would I create a wheel that is already in motion when I can just help turn it? Crohn's and Colitis Canada is doing amazing things, so why not just collaborate together and each play to our strong suits? So I'm curious about each of your specific volunteer roles. Can you tell me more about why you each chose the roles that you're in?
Yeah, so I became a Gutsy peer support mentor to provide support to individuals who are newly diagnosed with IBD. This was important to me because when I was diagnosed in 2008, I truly felt alone in the experience. And as a teenager, I also found that talking about my IBD symptoms were pretty embarrassing. And at the time, believe it or not, there was no social media. I didn't have access to local community groups, and I didn't know anyone my age with health problems. So considering how isolating my experience was for a good 10 years, I didn't want others to share in that same feeling. So I decided to join the support program for that reason. I also consider myself to be very lucky because through the peer support program, I've been given a lot of access to different resources. But really the best part of it is that I've become a part of a community where we get to connect and chat. And even when I have my own personal challenges with Crohn's and colitis, I have a community at my fingertips that I can connect with and chat with at any point. And so I truly feel connected all the time, and I never feel alone in this.
Comme Nitisha, je suis un mentor pour les personnes nouvellement diagnostiquées, car je crois là, que en fait, je sais que mon expérience personnelle peut les aider, même si nos situations sont différentes. Donc, je suis présidente de la marche Gauthier de la Montérégie parce que j'aime savoir que je fais une différence dans la journée des participants de la marche en l'organisant là, évidemment avec le comité qui est toujours nécessaire. Donc, pour moi, là, c'est définitivement des beaux sentiments d'être capable d'aider les autres.
I think volunteering with Crohn's Colitis Canada and my roles as Gutsy Walk Chair and Chapter President here in Halifax have helped me better understand my disease, but more importantly, I've met so many great people who live with the same concerns and uncertainties that I do day to day, and being able to provide and receive peer support to people that are going through something I already have experience with, or leaning on someone who really knows what having Crohn's disease means is invaluable. The organization's move toward providing more support for patients during my time volunteering has made a big difference to both myself and I believe thousands of Canadians living with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis that are connected to this organization.
It's great to hear. Bree did give us an answer for this one too. She says, I've met a ton of new friends and mentors through volunteering as the Gutsy Walk Chair and organizing events with Crohn's and Colitis Canada. It is wild to see how many people are impacted by this disease and how many people are affected through a loved one. Through Crohn's and Colitis Canada and the collective, there have been countless get-togethers where new people show up and just never leave. We have created a fun community of people who all have a special bond through our illness. I've also created a network of businesses and organizations who all want to support Crohn's and Colitis Canada and the collective as well. And that has been absolutely incredible to see. So this notion of community has adapted, to say the least, a bit over the last few years. And I'd love to hear more about how COVID-19 has impacted chapter volunteering. I'm wondering, David, if you can tell us a bit about your experience in Halifax.
Oh, definitely. As with most aspects of life, COVID had a major impact on our chapter and our volunteers here in Halifax. Our last official in-person chapter meeting was in February 2020. That's over 3 years of Zoom meetings to try and keep our chapter going. Even as COVID has subsided and the world began opening back up, it's still been difficult to return to in-person meetings due to our previous regular meeting space remaining closed. In-person meetings weren't the only thing affected by COVID, of course. In-person events, both for fundraising, education, were shut down for several years. It seemed like for 2 years, we'd be constantly saying at every meeting, we will reassess the COVID rules next month to see if in-person events are finally possible. And that just kept happening over and over again until finally our once annual trivia night finally resumed for the first time in November 2022. At the same time, our meetings continued thanks to Zoom, which was a challenge for some people that were often zoomed out after sitting in front of the same computer screen for work all day. Me being part of my workday time and time again for a number of years anyway. It also provided some opportunities as people that routinely would not be able to attend an in-person meeting because they live too far outside Halifax to get in potentially, or they have issues around Crohn's and colitis that cause them not to be able to travel that far. So in the past, for whatever reason, they were able to jump on Zoom now, Zoom call to find support and information and to attend a meeting.
That's great. The trivia night sounds fun. I had heard that that was a big success, so congratulations. And I think we can all relate to that feeling of being zoomed out. You know, it had opened some opportunities, but it also got a little tiring after a while, for sure. I'm wondering if you can each share some other memorable moments in your volunteer experience with Crohn's and Colitis Canada. And we'll keep you going, David. You're on a roll here. So if you can kick us off on this, and then we'll kind of go one by one.
Well, there's a lot of memorable moments over the years, both volunteering at Gutsy Walk and its previous incarnation as a Heal and Wheelathon. I remember one year it was over 30 degrees and we almost baked in the sun. And it was just a year later, it was practically froze to death in the exact same location when the winds were so strong that we had to wrap ourselves up in a bunch of Gutsy scarves I randomly found in a box, thankfully, a few days prior to that. In more recent years, we've also had to brave torrential rains to support the cause on a few years in a row. So one thing volunteering with Crohn's Colitis Canada has done for me over the years is helped me see the good in a lot of people, which is a reminder you sometimes need, especially over the things we've had to deal with over the last number of years.
Good reminder. I'm going to read Bree's answer to this one. She says, the best memories I have are through meeting new people at Gutsy Walk and other events. Most of the people I've met along this journey have been either recently diagnosed or impacted by Crohn's or colitis and have not had anyone to talk to or share their experience with. Knowing how isolating it can be, it is always so empowering to be able to connect with those who are looking for support and letting them know there is a giant community of people out here ready to help. So Jennifer, we'll go to you next.
Oui, donc un moment mémorable pour moi a été en 2017, quelques semaines avant la marche Gotti, un membre du comité à l'époque et moi, nous avons fait une entrevue à la télévision. C'était seulement 5 minutes, donc dans une chaîne là, de télévision locale. C'était vraiment, vraiment, vraiment stressant, mais on est tellement heureuse. En fait, j'étais tellement heureuse d'avoir participé à cette occasion de parler, dans le fond, de plus avec de la Crohn et Colitis Canada.
As a peer support mentor, one of my most memorable moments was volunteering was when a mentee of mine shared a recognition message with me that she had posted on her social media. In her message, she shared details about her IBD diagnosis. And at the end of the post, she thanked not only Crohn's and Colitis Canada, but her Gutsy support mentor, myself, for helping her get through such a turbulent time in her life. This was very memorable for me and very impactful, because as a peer support mentor, you sometimes only have limited interactions with your mentees. And so you never really know what impact or your interaction is going to have on them. So having read that post, it really reinforced why I'm volunteering. And it reminded me that even a short interaction could have a long-term positive effect.
That's great. I like that story. It's great that she let you know what an impact you'd had, right? And thank you for sharing that with all of us tonight. I'm curious to know what advice you would have for someone who's interested in volunteering with Crohn's and Colitis Canada.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many volunteer opportunities with Crohn's and Colitis Canada, from peer support groups to event planning to keynote speaking. Whether you're living with IBD or not, we all have some special skill that we can contribute in some way or another. And I know firsthand, it can be intimidating to make commitments to volunteer when you're living with IBD. Flare-ups can be unpredictable, but in my experience volunteering, and as we see today, while volunteering with Crohn's and colitis, we're given a lot of flexibility and grace when facing personal challenges. So, it makes it really easy to balance life's ups and downs, but also contribute and volunteer. So my advice to all the attendees here today is just hop onto the Crohn's and Colitis Canada website, which you'll see on the bottom of most of our pictures, and submit your application. Join today. It's a really great decision.
It's great. And Bree had similar advice. She says, reach out and start the process. If there's an idea or opportunity that you have that can positively impact the organization, their team is open and supportive. She says, my other suggestion would be to attend some of the webinars or go to a community event to connect. It's always great to see firsthand what is happening and get a feel for the organization. The more you are out there, the more people are learning, seeing, and hearing about the ways they can support or get involved. Over 300,000 people in Canada live with IBD, and lots don't have the voice or the platform to share their experiences. While this disease isn't the most glamorous, there are so many ways that you can show up for our community and take part in efforts to help increase advocacy and awareness. So we're now going to move into the Q&A session. So I will say this discussion so far has been inspiring and a real reminder of how fortunate we are to have such phenomenal, devoted volunteers contributing to our cause. Thank you. So there's some questions. I'm just going to go to the chat and see what we've got so far. There's a question for David. What are the Halifax chapter's big fundraising events besides Gutsy Walk? Start with that one.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I'm on mute there. As I previously mentioned, we've before COVID sent us into a bit of a tailspin. We did an annual trivia night fundraiser, which we'd done for 3 or 4 years in a row before COVID. And as I said, we brought it back in November. Basically, we hold a trivia night at a local bar that offers up the space to us for free, where we charge admission to teams of 4 to 6 people, have the trivia. We also have 50-50 draw that night, bake sale, and a silent auctions typically as well. Other things we've typically done throughout the year, we've had a gift card raffle just after Christmas in January for the last 3 years, which has been a tremendous success. We also hold a province-wide 50-50 over the last number of years, now that 50-50 has gone online, which has also been tremendously successful, allowing us to reach people throughout Nova Scotia. So that's some of the things we've done over the last number of years.
That's great. Thank you. There's another question in the chat for Natisha and Jennifer. So maybe if you can take turns answering this one. What do you learn in the training to be a gutsy peer support mentor? We start with you, Natisha.
It's been a while since I've done the training, but from what I remember, you go through protocols. So there, a lot of the items that you get are situational. So, sometimes you'll have mentees who might need additional support, whether it's through Crohn's and Colitis Canada or not. And so we're kind of coached on how to handle certain situations that might be outside of our scope. Not only that, but we have constant communication with the coordinators of the gutsy support. So if there's ever at a time where you're challenged, you can reach out to them and they provide a lot of support. Jennifer, can you think of anything else that we cover in the training?
Une chose de plus que je dirais, c'est qu'il nous présente aussi qu'est-ce qu'on devrait dire, puis qu'est-ce qu'on ne devrait pas dire. Donc, on ne devrait pas parler de. Oui, on doit parler de notre expérience personnelle, mais on ne devrait pas nommer des docteurs, nommer des médicaments, nommer certaines choses pour ne pas influencer, parce que évidemment, on le sait tous que un médicament ou une façon, une diète, ou c'est tout unique à nous. Donc, qu'est-ce que moi je fais ne peut marcher, va pas nécessairement marcher pour les autres. Donc, c'est de vraiment s'aligner pour respecter le côté plus général quand même de qu'est-ce qu'on vit. Mais fait que ça, ce serait la seule chose que j'ajouterais à qu'est-ce que Natisha a dit.
Thank you. Another one here. We received an audience question for you, Jennifer, about volunteering as a gutsy peer support mentor, as a French speaker specifically. Wondering if you can tell us a bit more about that experience.
Oui, donc étant bilingue, là, je savais qu'il y avait, en fait, que je pouvais aider les anglophones et puis les francophones, mais je savais effectivement là, qu'il y avait vraiment un besoin dans la communauté francophone. J'ai personnellement fait le processus en anglais pour devenir un mentor, mais pour les francophones qui veulent devenir mentors, les ressources, ils sont disponibles en français. Alors, si vous y pensez, là, définitivement, là, je vous encourage à faire la demande pour devenir mentor. Et puis, au pire, vous pouvez aussi me communiquer avec moi ou avec les autres ressources là, à l'interne chez Crohn et Colitis Canada.
So one more in the chat. Someone says, I was diagnosed with colitis recently and have been asked to be a local honorary chair at Gutsy Walk. I don't talk much about my colitis and I'm nervous about sharing my story, but I do want to start raising more awareness. Do you have any tips? And I think each of you could answer this one. Maybe David, we start with you.
I would say if you're nervous about sharing your story and you want to get better at it and learn more about it, sharing a Gutsy Walk is probably the best place to get started at, because you know you're in a supportive environment around a lot of people that are probably gone through a lot of the things you're going to talk about, that fully understand and appreciate the struggles you've gone through and can potentially offer support or other assistance if you're looking for it. So I'd say if you want to get started with sharing your story, Gutsy Walk is a great place to do it.
Natisha, Jennifer?
Yeah, I would agree. You know, starting in a local chapter or at a Gutsy event would probably be the best place. I was in the same boat where for a long time I really hid the fact that I had IBD, partially because of career and, you know, not wanting to stunt my career growth. But as I grew throughout my career, I actually realized that it was, when I did share that about me, it was more so praised than looked poorly against me. So, you know, if I could go back and do something different, I would probably share my story way sooner and you know, connect with as many people as I can, because, you know, everybody's fighting some sort of challenge. And, you know, you connect with people when you share these stories about yourself. So definitely start local, even with amongst your friend groups if you haven't already, and then kind of slowly work your way out of that group, of your local groups.
It's great advice. Jennifer?
C'est sûr que tout ce que les David et Natisha ont dit, je supporte à 100%. De mon côté, je voulais partager mon histoire, mais qu'est-ce qui me freinait était que, bon, je n'aimais pas parler devant le public, mais quand on m'a demandé de participer, d'être la porte-parole de la marche, j'ai dit oui quand même parce que je voulais essayer ça, je voulais voir comment j'étais pour me sentir. Puis vraiment, depuis la première fois, dans le fond, que j'ai parlé devant le public, là, ce public-là, ça m'a vraiment aidé là, donc, pour débloquer cet aspect-là de mon... Qu'est-ce qui me freinait dans le fond, c'était que j'aimais plus ou moins là, parler devant le public, mais je regrette vraiment pas d'avoir fait ça.
So that's all the audience questions, but I'm gonna throw one in here because I have one of my own questions. I have a daughter who's 13 who wants to get involved and help volunteer because my mom has colitis. It's in our family. She's heard my grandmother's stories. What advice would you give to somebody who's that young and wanting to get involved? You know, it's not her story. She's a family member. Would you have any advice for her on coming up with a way to volunteer?
Je peux y aller. C'est sûr que moi, j'ai été diagnostiquée à l'âge de 9 ans. Donc, même si, bon, évidemment, dans votre situation, c'est la petite fille de la patiente, je dirais, mais elle a entendu l'histoire de sa grand-mère, elle a sûrement vécu des moments, elle a vu des moments que sa grand-mère ne filait pas. Donc, elle sait quand même un peu qu'est-ce que c'est d'avoir la maladie, mais aussi étant un proche de quelqu'un qui a la maladie, parce que nous, en tant que patients, en tant bon, de patients là, de Crohn et Colitis Canada, qu'on vit ça, nous, on connaît notre expérience, mais on ne connaît pas la façon que notre famille nous voit, puis la façon qu'eux ressentent quand on est malade, quand ils ne sont pas capables de nous aider, ils se sentent vulnérables, ils se sentent incapables, dans le fond, de nous aider. Donc, ça apporte quand même une autre vision de c'est quoi vivre avec la maladie du point de vue d'un membre de la famille. Donc, si elle, peu importe comment qu'elle s'implique, soit avec à la marche ou en créant des événements pour lever des fonds. C'est sûr que là, elle a quand même 13 ans, mais le plus jeune qu'elle veut s'impliquer, le mieux que c'est. Puis, c'est ça. Donc, c'est de participer puis de mentionner que c'est l'histoire de sa grand-mère qu'elle veut mettre en lumière. Et puis, c'est ça, c'est ce que je dirais, là, d'y aller de l'avant quand même, là, même si ce n'est pas elle qui a la maladie.
Thank you, Jennifer. David or Natisha, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I actually started with the Gutsy Walk. So the Gutsy Walk was kind of a great place for me to attend and meet, those who were on the back end of the Gutsy Walk volunteering. Gave me an opportunity to chat and see what it was about. It was a kind of an easier way to volunteer and be a part of something without having to maybe give too much input, where I just didn't know where my input would be valuable. And then starting from there, after doing the Gutsy Walk for a bit, I did a couple events through my hand and to help kind of set up and host and clean up events. And then from there is when I thought, okay, you know what, I'm ready to, support the community by mentoring. And so that could be a journey, and you could really hold and wear different hats while volunteering with Crohn's and colitis. And even not having IBD and being a peer support is very important, because there are mentees who sign up who are caregivers or children, parents, caregivers. So we need also volunteers who have that experience, who's not necessarily living with the disease, but also supporting those who have diseases, because we have a lot of mothers who come in and say, my child was newly diagnosed. What are ways I can support? So there's so many places to start. And if you want to start small, then you can start with the walks. And then if you want to be more integrated, there's ways to get there.
That's great. Those are good points. And I see Amy Harrison is in the chat saying, as a wife of someone with Crohn's, it's an exercise in allyship. There are lots of opportunities at Gutsy Walk in particular, but year round, she can tell her own story of a family member living with colitis from her own point of view. That's great. Thanks, Amy. I think you're right. Like, everybody's got different perspectives, right? It impacts people in different ways depending on their connection to the diseases, and all those points of views are important. Is there anything you would add, David?
I just second what Natisha inputted on. We have so many volunteer opportunities at Gutsy Walk, whether it be small things from running our kids zone to helping with the walk route to large things from running the barbecue to helping in registration. So I think no matter how old you are, no matter what experience you have, there's some kind of skill you have that can be that you can use to help out on walk day or whatever other events or programs we help put on throughout the year. Just to figure out what you want to do at a walk, go out and do that and determine if that's something you want to build on or even learn new skills. It's a great way to not only meet new people, but learn new volunteer skills that you can impact not only the cause, but in other aspects of your life as well.
That's great. That's helpful. My daughter's an artist, so she did some holiday cards this year, and then she said a percentage of the proceeds from the holiday cards would come to Crohn's and Colitis Canada, but they ended up being very expensive to print, so it became kind of funny that there wasn't a lot of proceeds. So we want to find another way that enables her to feel connected and raise the money at the same time. So that's just my own little personal anecdote. So I think unless there's any more questions, and I think that's all we've seen in the chat. So we'll start to wrap things up. And then if other questions come in while we're going through some of the closing remarks, we're happy to address them. But I would see this as the start of our conversation. It's not the end. So I appreciate that we've opened things up, so to speak, tonight. So thank you again to our panelists. On behalf of all of us at Crohn's and Colitis Canada, I want to thank each of you on our virtual stage here, and those across the country who donate their time and their skills to our cause. Each of you is unique and special to our organization, and we're incredibly appreciative of the talents you bring to improving the quality of life of everyone affected by Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Many of you will know that we launched our new impact strategy, our new strategic plan in the last year. And one of our objectives in the strategic plan is to modernize the way we engage volunteers. We're looking to offer more options and more flexibility for people to contribute to Crohn's and colitis and our promise in ways that are meaningful to them. So we're currently going through a listening and discovery exercise, and we look forward to sharing more about this soon. Some other questions have come through in advance of the webinar about IBD nutrition and treatments. Our research and patient programs team will be in touch by email to help answer some of those questions. And a quick reminder that our annual Gutsy Walk is just over 6 weeks away. If you haven't registered yet, please head over to gutsywalk.ca. And those interested in volunteering at Gutsy Walk on Sunday, June 4th, or in other roles at Crohn's and Colitis Canada, please visit crohnsandcolitis.ca to learn more, and just hover over Get Involved in the main toolbar and click Volunteer with Us. One more question has just come in. I heard there are monthly meetings. What are they like? Does anyone want to talk about monthly meetings?
I can start that if you'd like. In Halifax, we typically have meetings once a month from September to June. They used to be in person before COVID kind of messed that up a bit. But our monthly meetings are basically divided into 2 sections. We start off with peer support, where people come out, they can talk about anything regarding their disease or not regarding their disease they like, whether it be challenges they've had, successes they've had, fears they have about potentially, for example, we've had people come out to our meetings before they're having surgery in a few months and they're wondering what that might be like, because we always have somebody in the room that's probably faced some kind of challenge or fear or problem that they've faced. I mean, we always talk about the fact we're not medical experts and that we don't have medical opinions necessarily, but we have had experiences with dealing with things that a lot of people have questions about or fears about. And the second half of our meeting is focused on the business side of the chapter, talking about fundraising events coming up, plannings of Gutsy Walk, looking to generate ideas for future fundraising or educational events. And we always tell people that they can come out for the full meeting if they want, or if they're just looking for the peer support to get some help, we're definitely out there just to help them for that as well. So that's what we basically do in Halifax, which has all been online lately, but hopefully one day in person again.
in person. That's great. Natisha and Jennifer, do you have anything to add about your monthly meetings?
No,
You
we don't
pretty
have.
much covered it.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time and your ongoing support of Crohn's and Colitis Canada. We appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed learning about how volunteers contribute to our cause as much as I did tonight. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. We'll keep in touch. Take care, everyone.